who's working with a more senior broker. If it were not for that broker's inexperience, he wouldn't have signed the LOI and the purchase and sale agreement wouldn't have been signed. I literally told him, I was like, I fly airplanes, I'll come up with the money, like I can figure it out. So he's like, all right.
When the doubt gets loud, but answer that call. Vision ain't real till you grind at speed, so breathing deep. Then call the damn leads. Call the damn leads.
Hey, welcome back to Call the Damn Leads, the show by sales professionals for sales professionals. I'm your host, Drewbie Wilson. With more than 2 decades in sales, I've seen it, been through it, heard about it. Now I'm bringing those stories to you, my favorite people in the world, the sales community. Because let's be honest, this is the greatest job on earth. Doesn't matter where you come from, what background, what personality type, you can carve out an amazing life in sales. Today's guest is no stranger to the journey. I'd like to welcome Ricardo Torres to the show. How are you, sir?
I am great, Drewbie. Thank you for having me, man. Very proud to be here with you.
Hey, very excited to have you, and I'm excited to jump right in, man. I want to hear your crazy sales story.
All right. Let's see. This is an interesting one, man, because I'm an entrepreneur, and I don't always perceive myself as a salesman, but life is a sale. Transactions are always some, element of a sale. So for me, man, this will go back to when I kind of first started my entrepreneurial journey. This was plagued with imposter syndrome. Dude, about 2019, my business partner and I and my best friend, we liquidated our 401ks and we bought an apartment complex in the hood. Essentially, we pieced together some money from a Tesla sale and we just emptied out our 401ks and we said, send it. We're going to figure it out. It was the highest level of like naivete, but fortune favors the bold, man. And look, if it were not for that transaction, I probably wouldn't be, it's like butterfly effect, right? I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now. So many different things happened, but because I shot my shot there, that was such a big deal. So if I were to give you my craziest sales story, it would be, I had done that. We bought the apartment complex, but we were illiquid again, which a lot of your listeners know this. You know it, man. Like there's a difference between you could have some equity, but you could be cash, you don't have any cash. I'm like, look, I got a lot of equity, but I don't have anything in my checking account. So dude, we bought this apartment complex. COVID is about to pop off. I was illiquid. We spent all of our money and my wife's asking me like, hey, I'm an officer in the Air Force at this time, by the way. I'm a captain and I'm flying the A-10 Warthog, the greatest aircraft, close air sport, just king, is phenomenal. That's a different story though. But I thought I had this great idea to better understand underwriting for commercial multifamily investments and syndicate a deal. I would raise capital for a deal. And I thought, I needed to be thinking big here, right? So I did my research. I had already known a lot of brokers in the South Carolina area, which is where my business partner was at. We found this $3.4 million 30 townhome deal. And we actually got it under contract, dude. No money. We got it under contract. And the broker was an up-and-coming broker who was working with a more senior broker. If it were not for that broker's inexperience, he wouldn't have signed the LOI and the purchase and sale agreement wouldn't have been signed. I literally told him, I was like, I fly airplanes. I'll come up with the money. Like, I can figure it out. So he's like, all right. So, dude, Pat and I get this under contract. And, like, I just had this weight on my chest, dude. I was like, how are we? Because I ran the number. I knew the underwriting. I needed to raise $1.1 million. And so we had gotten a little bit smart on syndication, raising capital. We knew what like a 506B was versus a 506C, non-accredited investor versus an accredited for the SEC purposes. And dude, we started making phone calls. Which look, this is perfect, right? I know. And I didn't even plan that. Wow, that's good. We could end it here actually. So, and it also we texted too. And this just goes to show you that in 2026, there's so many technological features that are available to us. You don't need to take this crazy 30-minute complex phone call. You can ask somebody just point blank, or I know you just send them a meme and we can figure it out. But dude, I, over the course of the next 2 months, we were hell bent on how we would raise $1.1 million. Pat and I, over the course of 3 weeks, were able to raise about $150,000. So we were like a little more than 10% of the way through. And listen, I was proud of that, dude. But
Oh, hell yeah.
it was no way. And I'm like, 150K, this is phenomenal. It was friends, right? It was friends who
Yeah.
believed in us. And
A couple guys got 25, 10 grand, 30 grand.
It was 5 investors, 4 at 25 and 1 at like 10,000 or something.
Yep.
Or a couple like that. So I put myself out there on Facebook groups. My first million in multifamily, I led with my accomplishments and my desire and my vision. And dude, I started to meet some operators, some general partners in the industry. And this is the first tenet that I think is really important for listeners, for anybody out there who's aspiring to achieve growth in what they do. And that is the proximity that you have to people who are doing what you want to do is of paramount importance. If you want to be at that level, you need to associate yourself with the people at that level. And dude, I met a guy, I'll drop his name here. Tori Sheffer is a great friend. He's a mentor of mine. Tori was in the Midwest doing deals for apartment complexes with a clean ability to raise capital because he was a tried and true operator. So I texted Tori one morning. I was like, dude, I got a deal. Can you look at it? Now he's super busy. He doesn't have that much more time, though he'll make time for me. But then he was like, yeah, can you hop on a call in like 20 minutes? So I canceled lunch with my wife and I got back to the office. Got on Wi-Fi, ran through this deal with him, and he didn't look at me, but we were on the phone. He's like, Ricardo, he's like, this is a damn good deal. And I was like, I know. This is why I'm trying to raise money, but I need help. Dude, 2 months later, and just to make a Reader's Digest out of this, 2 months later, we closed on that deal. Pat and I, my business partner and I raised $400,000, which that was pretty good for us. And Tori had brought in the other 700. So, this mentality that you want 100% of I'll just put it, 100% of a grape versus 10% of a watermelon, right? You have to be willing to give up a little bit of something in order to help or in order to receive the support of others. And that was probably my craziest sales story is we got a deal under contract with no money. Later, we closed it within the allotted time frame. The broker made out really good. We did too. We bought it for 3.36 mil. And we ended up selling it later, about 2 years later, for 4.45. So it was a good deal for everybody involved. And I learned about how to raise capital, which was something that I had tremendous imposter syndrome about. And now it's like, let's make it happen, man. We need money. We'll figure it out.
Well, and thank you for sharing that because there's so many things that we're going to pull out of that for this conversation. And we won't have enough time for all of them. I already know. Yeah. But
we'll have to do a part 2 or something.
The thing that I really find so interesting about sales and entrepreneurship is the ability to just figure it out is one of the most valuable skills that you can have and develop because it is a skill that you can work on. And so when you go into these fields and you make the decision of, hey, here's a thing that I'm interested in and I want to figure out how to pull it all together. So I'm going to reverse engineer it, right? Maybe I'm going to take a course or I'm going to go through a deal and I'm going to kind of look at like, how did they structure it? What was the process? What was all involved? What are the variables? For you, have you always had like a deep figure it out gene or like, what was your process for developing that as because when you put your back against the wall, man, like some people freeze up and others like they blossom. So for you, what was that process like?
That's a great question, Drewbie. No, I have not always had a deep figure out type, mentality. My wife always says, and to her credit, everything is figure outable, and it is. It's just, do we have enough time and resources to do it? For me, I have surged in concentrated moments of my life with what I perceive as massive success. So I was 225 pounds. I was on my couch working for Citigroup when I was in my late teens. My wife got pregnant. I sympathy ate with her. I gained a whole bunch of weight. And my brother at the time was running a marathon and he looked great, dude. He was like tip top shape. He kept talking about how good his life was and stuff. And I was like, damn, I need some of that. And you would think that I would go from like 0 to like 5K. Now, mind you, I grew up playing basketball and stuff. So dude, I used to pride myself on being very athletic. And so I was like, no, I'm going to do a marathon with him and I'm going to do it in like 5 months. So, dude, my wife looks at me sideways. She's like, what? I was like, yeah, I'm doing it. And, dude, I did it so poorly. I was like wearing long basketball shorts. I had basketball shoes on. I was running in glasses, like spectacles, no contacts. I was bald. It was Tucson, Arizona. Life was rough. But you know what, dude? and I decided to do it I did the Marine Corps Marathon in 2009. And my brother and I ran it. I went from 225 to like a svelte 180. I felt so good about myself. And what I'm getting at here is that was a concentrated moment of success in my life. Later, I pivoted and I decided to get my act together and go back to college. And I became an officer and then a pilot and a fighter pilot. And for me, like when you take these little moments and you add them up, you look at your scorecard and you're like, I've done pretty well in this game. I can keep doing this. Like if I could be a fighter pilot, if I could go run 26.2 miles without stopping, I can absolutely do this. And so no, I did not have the figure outable gene. However, I have always had this one gene that I attribute a lot of my success to. And that is, well, if they can do it, I can too. I can do that. And I'm not at a disadvantage and I will figure it out. It's going to take me maybe longer than the average Joe because sometimes I'm thick-headed, but I've always looked at life as a competition and I don't like being beat. And when I'm beat, it motivates me to do better. You know?
Oh man, I love that for so many reasons. But number one is I'll never forget. Like I too have been on a fitness journey, so we shared that, and I know we've chatted a little bit about that off camera here. But the first time I ever did a century ride, because I love cycling, so I was a BMX kid and all that, And so I'll never forget. I signed up for the Maumee Valley Adventurers Century Ride. And the starting point, I think, was, 8 or 10 miles from my house down this trail that I rode all the time. So I was like, well, I'm just going to ride to the event, and then I'll do the 100 and ride home because I'm such a badass. Like, of course, why wouldn't I? And I ride down there, and I'm early on in my cycling adventure, and I've got on gym shorts, basketball shoes, like a pack with like a camel bag, and I don't know anything about supported races or any of this. And so I show up looking like an absolute menace. And we kick off, and I'm cruising. And I'm,
you're doing great, of course.
Yeah, of course. Halfway through, I end up connecting with this lady, Ruth, who was like a retired Navy admiral and was telling me all these crazy stories about how she just travels around and rides. And I remember I'm like cruising along and I'm sitting up, no-handed riding, and it's like windy as shit. And I'm eating a peanut butter and jelly or something. And we get to the next stop, and she's like, just for the record, we were doing 20 miles an hour into the wind, and you were sitting up no-handed. What were you doing? And I was like, I got hungry, so I was eating. She's like, that is unheard of. Nobody does that. And so I get to the end of the race, and I'm realizing as I'm talking to these people that, I don't have on a kit. I don't have like clip-in pedals. I look like just an absolute menace. And as you said, it was just the pig-headed stubbornness of, hey, man, if they can do it, I can do it. Like, I know I can do the miles. What? Like, let's just go. Let's figure it out. And it's always such an internally fulfilling moment when you make that promise to yourself and it comes to fruition.
Oh, 100%.
And so what I'd be curious about for you, as you've gone down this journey and you've taken these different approaches to, okay, here's this opportunity and here's this opportunity, what was one big failure that you did have that you can look at and go, hey man, even though I failed, I'm actually really glad that happened?
Yeah, man. I'm going to say something real fast on the previous topic before moving on to this question. I think delusion is very closely tied to success. And I think that if you have a delusional idea about something, keep fortifying that, bring logic to it and quantify it, because you're really close to success more than likely. You're going to get a lot of haters. You're going to get a lot of shade, but keep going. And many times what we're referring to right now is the audacity to do something. You have the audacity to do that bike ride and be kind of untrained. Most people are afraid to even try that because they don't want to look a certain way. Who cares? Zoom out far enough, man. We're so inconsequential in this thing. Go for it. Swing for the fences, dude. Enjoy the fine china. Eat the ice cream in moderation if you have an issue. But so that's that. But so for me, Drewbie, I do. I have when I worked for Citigroup, it was 2010. I worked my way up from taking Spanish phone calls in the delinquency for delinquent accounts. Citigroup used to own the Sears portfolio, if you remember Sears. And Sears and Roebuck. And I would just call people on their delinquent accounts. And I'd be like, hey, estoy hablando para el señor Wilson, necesitamos $500. I'd be like, you're due $500, man. Mr. Wilson, where are you at?
Pay up, big dog. The shark is
Yeah.
here.
Well, I was strategic because I would start the call in English. And if they decided to try to be sneaky and go Spanish, well, guess what? Aquí estoy, and they'd be like, damn it. Anyways, I worked my way up, man, to unit manager. I was very proud of my accomplishments and what I had done with that company. I shook a lot of hands. I ran projects. I just was this young guy, man, who was like just ready for the world. And I wanted to be this Fortune 500 C-suite exec. I had this desire. I've always had a desire to be a leader at the helm. I wanted to sit at the head of the table. I didn't want sloppy seconds. I wanted to be the one at the head of the table making the decisions. And so I think a lot of my attributes are centered around this. But anyways, I got fired from my job, man. And it was I had a child. My wife and I had our daughter at the time. Oh, it was a terrible time, man. I was the only breadwinner. I approved a wire to be sent back to a client that it was part of a Nigerian scam. So think Drewbie Wilson owns a $500,000 mortgage. We received this payment for $400,000 from you. If you don't tell us what to do with it, we're going to apply it to your next payment and all the rest is going to go to principal because the mortgage company wants to get your money, right? So we did that. We did it on like a Thursday morning. We received it. And on Friday, the client called and said, I'm so sorry. I put like one too many zeros on their check or something. It was so stupid, man. The systems should have prevented this from happening. But I, being a leader that prided myself on trying to work on my boss's job to try to be better at the next level, I overlooked the attention to detail that my job required. And so I had empowered one of my employees to make the decision to approve those. And I gave him the wire codes to do it. So lo and behold, dude, Thursday, the money comes in. Friday, my employee, Mark, sends the money back and the check bounced on Monday. So the client essentially received $403,000, part of a Nigerian scam. They got scammed as well, but we got. They did an investigation and they fired me after 2 weeks. I was very honest in the investigation. They said, did you give the employee these codes? I said, yes, I did. I said, I meant well, but look, I'm about integrity and they decided to fire me. So to answer your question in a longer version, that was a pivotal moment for me. It struck my character really, really hard. It was a big L on my scorecard, and it changed the way I moved going forward. I buckled down and I stopped worrying more about those people above me, and I started to worry more about what was in front of me, because you can't go expect to critique somebody else's porch unless yours is swept off. And dude, that was a real big thing for me, man. I saw money, I saw dollars and cents, and I just wanted to scale up the company, but I wasn't willing to do all the blocking and tackling required. And so that one hit home, man. That one hurt hard. And I had to go look for jobs, man. I eventually got hired at Geico, auto insurance company, and helping with their personal injury protection claims out here in Tampa, Florida. And I felt like I was below that job, that I should have been doing better. But you know what, man? I had to pay my penance, dude, because I made that mistake. And it was one of the best things that ever happened to me.
I really appreciate you sharing that. It's, as I sit there and listen and I reflect back on some of the positions I've had and some of the conversations, there were definitely moments where I was in a position of, we'll say, middle management, and most definitely have always had an entrepreneurial spirit and ownership mindset. Like, hey man, I'm here for the company. I want everybody to win, and have made statements or, gone about certain decisions that came back in, hey, we're not doing that. And you don't have the right to make that decision. And it's so hard because in my mind at the time, I'm thinking, well, this is the right move for the company. Like, yeah, I know 100%. What's best here. Like, I'm in the mix every day. You don't even see this, boss. Like, I'm here to help you, and I'm making the right decision for the company. And it's like, but it's not your company. And
it's tough sometimes.
It is so hard. And this is one of the things that you learn as you progress, is that there is a time to accept feedback, and then there is a time to take the helm and run the ship and say, hey, listen, while I appreciate that, we're going to do it this way. And
absolutely.
It's tricky and it's managerial stuff, but I'd be interested as kind of a loop around, because I love how you are so disciplined and dialed in at this point. Being in the service, how has that translated for you, and have you been able to use your time there to convert into like the leadership side on an entrepreneurial aspect? Like, do they translate together or correlate together, I should say?
Well, and that was why I said that was the best thing that happened to me, because if it were not for Citigroup firing me, I'd probably be at, I don't know, some level, but I'd probably be hating my job by now. You know what I mean? I have way more freedom and control of my time now. So that afforded me the opportunity to continue on. And I decided to get my act together and go back to college. I went to University of South Florida. And so I got fired in March of 2010. We moved from Tucson to Tampa to be closer to family and to receive a bit of a financial support from like live with mom-in-law, like, dude, you got to suck up your pride sometimes, dude. And we crashed in her pad, dude. And I went and looked for job after job after job. I wasn't finding them. I finally found Geico, but I knew I didn't want to be there. And so it was the middle of the summer, man. And I told my wife, I was like, I got to get my act together, babe. I was like, I got to go back to college. I was like, being a leader in a large Fortune 500 company and getting canned and then trying to go start that again. I was like, I need something to fall back on. And so I went to a new student orientation program. And on my way home from the campus, I was driving back to my vehicle. And I remember looking at my watch or walking back to my vehicle. And I was like, oh, I'm kind of early. My shift doesn't start till 4 p.m. I was working 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. at Geico every day. And I was like, I saw this beautiful ROTC building, dude. So I walked up to the top, to the fourth floor, and I saw this second lieutenant. Looked sharp, man. His ABUs were crisp. I was like, dang, this guy looks great, man. So I walked up and I said, hey, I want to be an officer in the Air Force. I just point blank. I was like, I just want to do it. He's like, all right, just fill this paperwork out. I was like, it's that easy? He's like, yeah, you just got a PT with us twice a week and go to this leadership lab. Little did I know he was like giving me the bare minimum, I was like, yes. I like on the way home, I called my brother who's in the Air Force, my dad. I was like, guys, I'm coming in, you got an officer on board. And dude, there was so much more involved. But to get to your question, going through the military and spending 11 years, the military teaches you to be a tactician first. Whether you're a rifleman in the Army, Marine Recon, a Navy SEAL, or in my case, a pilot or a fighter pilot, you have to know your product. You have to know your equipment better than anybody else. Because think about it, man. If I'm flying the A-10 around or if I'm solo in a T-38, I don't have the help of anybody else. You need to know your electrical system, your hydraulics, your oil, your engine, power plant system, the aerodynamics. So I spent that year of undergraduate pilot training was the most challenging year I've ever had in terms of academics and just human performance. It was 12-hour days every single day. Sunday, I spent 5 hours studying every night. And on Saturday, I would only get the day off and I would spend time with the family to try to recharge, only to be put back through the meat grinder once again. But it builds the best pilots. Right now, what's happening in Iran and stuff, I have this consolation in me that I know the bros are out there and we're doing, regardless of politics, that's not where I'm going, but our best and brightest are out there protecting our country. And it makes me feel really good because I know what they went through. You know what I mean? And so when you go through that, Drewbie, and you come out with the level of subject matter expertise that we think we see in the military as commonplace, we see it as a standard. And when you have that standard and you know those standards, dude, it's like practicing the hardest practices and then going into a game and being like, that wasn't as hard as practice. So that was the military for me, man. So no, did I have any dry cleaning or laundromat or any experience on how to raise capital? I absolutely did not. But did I know how to set my alarm? Did I know how to wake up, show up, demonstrate integrity, service, and excellence? And that's the slogan for the Air Force: integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do. So if you can try to demonstrate that, dude, you will run circles around people outside. And so I was part of the system. I embraced the system. And if you embrace a system like that, dude, it is going to serve you really well. If you kick and scream, it's probably you're going to be kicked out. So I attribute a lot of my success to the nature that was instilled in me as a military member, then as an officer, then as a pilot. And it's been a bit of a superpower that I kind of hold near and dear to the heart. This is why I continue to serve, because I didn't want to, I thought, what am I doing turning my back on this institution that gave me so much? So when it was time for me to try to transition out, because entrepreneurial endeavors had become enough for me to justify leaving, I asked the Air Force, I said, hey, can I have my cake and eat it too? Can I still fly part-time? And they were like, we'd love to have you. So I still fly 5 days a month and I go teach new people how to fly, new students how to fly. So I take off business owner hat and I put on flight cap instructor pilot and we talk formation, night flying, navigation. I love it, man. It's the best of both worlds.
I hope to someday get to come down and hang out with you and let you fly me around and make me pass out like those silly videos, man. Because I always wanted to be a fighter pilot when I was a kid. I rebelled. I was kind of a shithead, so I never went that path. But I've always had a deep appreciation for pilots and the thought process that it takes there. And so, man, I know we could sit and nerd out on this for many, many hours, but I do want to respect your time. How do we find you, follow you, check out more of your stuff? Because I know this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of like how you can share wisdom with people. Yeah,
thank you, Drewbie. Anybody can find me, Ricardo Torres, on LinkedIn and Facebook. I'm very active with the Blue Collar Millionaire Network on Facebook, and then independently as well. And I mean it. You could just visit me on those. Reach out to me if you're honest about wanting to just have a connection or speak about what your professional development looks like, especially as you aspire if you're a business owner, you're in sales and you own an asset and you want to take it to the next level. Hop on my calendar. We'll have a 15 or 30-minute call, and I'll give you my undivided attention, and we'll see how we can help you out.
Man, I will say with 100% certainty, anyone who takes the time to do that will truly appreciate that they did. You are a gem of a human, Ricardo. So thank you again for hanging out with us today.
Thank you, Drewbie. Appreciate your time today, brother. Have a great day.
Yep. Listen, you guys know what to do. If you got some value out of the show, share it on social media. Tag me, tag Ricardo. Let the world know that you invested your most valuable asset, your time, and you got something from it. Maybe you know somebody who absolutely sucks at their discipline. They need a little reminder, like what it's going to take to get their life together. Maybe they need a little reminder that the deal they're working on, it can come together if they stay and trust the process. Send them this episode. They're like, hey man, I thought of you when I heard this. Figured it would be worth a listen for you. Because that's what this is all about. We want to share the movement. We want to help everybody get better, get dialed in. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And if you have a crazy story and you want to share it on the show, I'd love to have you as a guest. Head over to callthedamnleads.com/podcast. Send us all your details. Get signed up. While you're there, grab a hat, keychain, book, something to support the show. We'll see you guys next time. Go call the damn leads.
When the doubt gets loud, but answer that call. Vision ain't real till you grind at speed, so breathing deep. Then call the damn leads. Call the damn leads.